Welcome to JWL Sports, where we review all the best sports clips from around the world. If this is your first time checking out a video, please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. We're watching a clip of The Herd with Colin Cowherd, talking about the 49ers, and is their Super Bowl window closing? Debo apparently has expressed that he's nervous that it is closing. I didn't listen to the clip yet in terms of Debo or obviously this clip either. But so I don't want to talk too much before I really know exactly what was said. But just in general, just using that topic as a jumping off point, the Super Bowl window is always closing. It's never a window, honestly. It's a crack. It's the tiniest thing because so many things need to go right for you to succeed. You need all of the factors to line up. Every step of the way, the 49ers could have not made it to the Super Bowl, okay? Just look at Debo being banged up multiple times throughout the season, in the playoffs as well, potentially not even playing in one of the playoff games, okay? Brock Purdy hurting his arm in the 2 years ago at the NFC Championship game. You have all of these things. The 49ers easily could have lost against the Packers. They could have lost against Detroit. So you have all these factors that all needed to work out for them just to make the Super Bowl and to almost win the Super Bowl. So many things need to go right. So many things. So the window is never indeed an actual window. It's a little crack. So it's the tiniest little thing. It's like looking through a keyhole in a cartoon. That's really what it is. So there never is this big stretch of a window, except for if you have just like, all of your amazing players are all just 2 and 3, second year and third year players. They're all just amazing, ready to go with a great coach, and everyone's healthy. And even then, it's tricky because health is such a factor. So let's see what they have to say. We can break it down from there.
Is that every year, 4 minimum, and on average 7 new teams make the NFL playoffs. That is the average. 4 minimum. 6 to 7 on average. I think the Niners will make the playoffs. But I think this group has peaked and will slowly come back down to earth. Debo Samuel recently lamenting another Super Bowl loss.
People just say, it's always the next year, but I heard that in 2019 and it took 4 more years to get where we're at. So, it's not that easy as people think to get to the Super Bowl. And, it takes everything. It takes me, the coaches, the guys, the people upstairs, and for them to bring people in to help and for everything just to play out right. It's just like not going to snap your hands and you just back in the Super Bowl again. It's harder than people think.
So, and I'll tell you why I think San Francisco's peaked. I think that we've seen the best of them. Number one, George Kittle is an old 30. He's a physical tight end. Never forget, Gronk retired for the first time at 29. They're very similar. They block. They get hit. Kittle's an old 30. Trent Williams going to be 36. A couple years left. Debo got banged up again. And Christian McCaffrey, in the last season and a half, has had 550 touches. He had 339 touches last year. That's like a baseball pitcher with 280 innings. You're going to have arm fatigue the following year if they go to the playoffs. The bottom line is the last time Christian McCaffrey had a workhorse year like that, the following year and a half, he didn't play much. He's 5'10", 210. He's not Derrick Henry. They also have to pay Brandon Ayuk like now. He's not quiet or subtle about it. Add to that the Rams have 11 draft picks, a lot of cap space, a great coach, and a better quarterback talent. Detroit, the Rams, and Green Bay are talented, younger, cheaper. Younger players tend to get healthier faster after injuries. Rams are younger, Green Bay's younger, Detroit's younger. All of them have lots of draft capital and excellent front offices. Dre Greenlaw, by the way, excellent linebacker. Will start the year, we presume, on IR. So I think San Francisco, I don't think they're going to fall off a cliff. I think in the weaker NFC, they'll make the playoffs. We don't know what Seattle's going to do. They have a new coach. I think Arizona's going to surprise people, may not make the playoffs in that division. But I do think teams have these peaks. We've seen it in sports. Sacramento Kings, Buffalo Bills. We don't consider the Niners that, right? Niners are going to get that ring. I don't think they are. I think they're really well run, really well owned, really smartly coached. Good GM John Lynch, a lot of good players. But teams peak, teams get old. Kittle's getting older. Trent Williams, Drake Greenlaw's injured. Debo banged up again. McCaffrey coming off. Think about this: year and a half, 550 touches. I mean, you're asking a pitcher to go 300 innings. That's for a guy that's 5'10", 210. Just saying.
So, okay, this is the way I look at it. I wouldn't say that they peaked. It depends on how we want to look at, how we're defining how someone peaks. I think the 49ers can and will be just as great as they were this past season in terms of their level of play. And I think this will probably be the final year, because then you are going to be in that issue of these players just getting older and run down. And that's just a fact, And so, injuries is such a risk. And that's the biggest problem that the 49ers face because of their age and because of the workhorses that they rely on, is that, Debo, Christian McCaffrey, these Trent Williams, that these players can and will most likely get injured and get banged up. It all depends on what type of injury are they getting. Is it lower leg? Is it ankle? Is it knee? Is it shoulder? How long are they out for? Is it a tear versus a sprain? And so all of those things can always derail any season. But if we just remove that from a factor and say, all right, we know they're going to get banged up, but no different than any other player. So no torn Achilles or something, where will they be? How will they be? I think they're going to be a really good team, a great team. But the real thing is that I do agree that the other teams are catching up. The Packers, mainly the Packers, are coming. And I think the Detroit Lions will also. The Detroit Lions are so lucky that they kept their OC. So lucky, because that changes everything to me. Because I think Detroit now can take another gigantic step forward. They got experience. They got hunger. They don't have no hangover. Goff is comfortable. Everyone's comfortable in that in that locker room right now, within that organization. So, and same thing with the Packers. They're all excited. They have no hangover. They're hungry. I think Jordan Love has taken some massive steps forward. They feel great. They feel ready. They know that the 49ers almost won the Super Bowl and that they almost beat the 49ers. So they're seeing oh my God, we could do this. Same thing with Detroit. Detroit's oh my God, they almost beat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. We had this team dead to rights. The Lions, are saying this. So all these teams, they all can compete. So the real question is will Brock Purdy take a step forward? Because there's a lot of people who think that based off of Brock Purdy's skill set and what he does well and his level of athleticism, is that there's not a lot of room for him to continue to get better. That when you have players like a Patrick Mahomes or a Josh Allen or any of these other players, that there's a lot more runway for them to continue to improve and get better and better and better. That with a QB like a Brock Purdy, you're already kind of reaching his peak. Same thing kind of with Kenny Pickett. Just some of these older, more mature quarterbacks, physically, that is, not necessarily mentally, as well as their style of play, their style of game. Someone like Lamar Jackson, who is such a athletic freak, who's relying so heavily on that level of athleticism, that he's got a long runway to improve, because they're going to develop his passing game. They're going to develop these other aspects of his game. Brock Purdy's already kind of well-rounded in that regard, so there's just only so much better he can get. At least that's the argument. I'm not expecting Brock Purdy this next season to just take such a leap forward where we're just whoa, he is a bona fide MVP. I think we're going to get exactly what we got before, honestly. He's going to do some great things. He's going to maybe take a step forward. I don't know. It depends on what we're talking about here. I think maybe they'll unlock a little bit more of his mobility, because they'll realize that can be maybe part of his game more, which will then potentially maybe keep defenses a little bit more honest against him, which then could open up the field for him. But I just don't think that all of a sudden you're going to see him and be oh my God, This dude is the MVP. Last season, there was the whole debate. Is the MVP? Is he not? Is it just the team? Is it Christian McCaffrey? Who is it? And so in order for the 49ers to take a step forward, the other players can't take any more steps forward. They're already at their peak. Christian McCaffrey, Debo, they're all there. There's nothing more else for them to do. So the only player on this roster that can truly now take a step forward and say, all right, I can lead us to victory now, is going to be Brock Purdy. And I just don't know how much of a step forward he's going to be able to take. So then the real question is like, okay, well, so then is the window open for the 49ers? And it's like, it's open just as much as it was last year, but it's just harder now. I have to believe that the Packers are going to be better. The Detroit Lions are going to be better because their players all collectively are continuing to take steps forward. Okay? Not only their position players, but also their quarterbacks not outside of Goff, are taking steps forward, like true, legit steps forward. So they're going to get better. That's just the way I see it. So it's going to get tougher. When he says it's a weaker NFC, I don't know what he's talking about with that regard, because why are you acting like the Bengals or some of these other teams are just so superior to say the Packers or Detroit? Like, I don't know where he gets off on that. The Detroit Lions beat the Kansas City Chiefs. Last time I checked, the Kansas City Chiefs are a dynasty and won the Super Bowl. So, this idea that the AFC is so stacked and the NFC isn't, I just don't think that's completely fair. I know that side of the league, the AFC, has all the fancy quarterbacks. They got the Joe Burrows, the Josh Allens, the Patrick Mahomes. Like, I get that, the CJ Strouds, but to act like that there's just a bunch of scrubs over in the NFC is just silly. So the 49ers are still a stacked team, but they are an older stacked team. It kind of is reminiscent to the Golden State Warriors when they won a couple years ago against the Boston Celtics. That was an old team, but it was the seasoned vets, and they were elite. But they needed Steph Curry to not only step up and truly, recapture his prime, but then they needed a somewhat younger player in an Andrew Wiggins to really step up. This is Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy is Andrew Wiggins in that situation. If they want to really legitimately, truly be a true number one threat in the NFC, Brock Purdy has to really step up. And I don't know if he can. I'm not saying he can't. I'm just saying I genuinely don't know. And it's really just kind of a wait and see for me. I try not to rush. I try not to do hot takes where I just say, Brock Purdy's not going to be that guy, just so I could say it, right? And put it in the thumbnail and in the title. Or I'm not going to make another claim that says, Brock Purdy's amazing, of course he's going to step up. We don't really have evidence for either way, honestly. There's evidence for both sides, actually, more than anything, where I can see him kind of just being, this is what he is. And I could also see it where it's like, yeah, he could take a step back, or he could take a step forward. But the one thing that I am confident in is that he's not going to take a gigantic step forward. He is not going to turn into this guy where we're just like, whoa, where the people who questioned him are going to be like, I am a believer of him. I do not see that happening. I really, really don't. So I think the 49ers are going to be in a tougher situation than they were last season, but not because of them, but really just because of the other teams are just getting better. And, the 49ers are going to have to contend against, the Lions, the 49ers, the Packers, and dare I say it, the Eagles. I'm really also fascinated, as everyone knows, I'm an Eagles fan, but I'm really interested to see, because I'm not making any predictions with the Eagles either, but I think that they will be significantly better because they should have, in theory, got their OC and their DC organized. So they will be a tougher team and a more competent team than they were last season. I'm not afraid of Tampa. Not afraid of, if Chicago Bears get Caleb Williams. I'm not afraid of them. I don't think that's good. They're not going to be able to hit the ground running with regards to that. So there's a lot of teams that are still going to be struggling. So the NFC is still up for the taking, but in a lot of ways, so is the AFC, because I don't think there's any clear dominant favorite there either. I know it's really easy just to pick Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, but I don't really see that either. So I think next season is going to be really, really interesting. I hope everyone is just healthy. This past season, we got a really weird season with a lot of injuries all over the place. So I'm really excited and I cannot wait. But those are just my thoughts. I would absolutely love to hear yours. Do you think the 49ers window is closing. You know, do you think that Brock Purdy is going to take a big step forward? I would absolutely love to hear your thoughts. I read every single comment. So if you think what I'm saying is the most ridiculous thing you've ever heard, please let me know in the comments below. If you think what I'm saying is the most amazing thing, then definitely please let me know. Either way, let's get into some discussions. Let's get into some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here. And I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. And I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.